I am love, 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 love. Ooh. I am joy, joy, joy. I am joy, joy, joy. I am joy, 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 joy. Ooh. I am joy, joy, joy. I am joy, joy, joy. I am joy, 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 joy. Joy, I seek your peace. I am joy. I seek your love. I seek your guidance and wisdom, guide my path along. I am love, 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 love. I am love, 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 love. Ooh. I am joy, joy, joy. I am joy, joy, joy. I am joy, 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 joy. Ooh. I am joy, joy, joy. I am joy, joy, joy. I am joy, 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 joy. I seek your peace. I seek your love. I seek your guidance and wisdom. Guide my path along. I am love, 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 love. I am love, 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 love. I am joy, joy, I am joy, I am joy, joy, I am joy, I am joy, 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 joy. I am joy, joy, I am joy, joy, I am joy, 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 joy. I seek your peace, I seek your love.
Hey, yo, peace, peace. What it is, what it do, what it be like, everybody. All right, for the brothers and sisters that are listening to this presentation. All right, so once again, this one is going to be about Kemetic trance states, Kemetic metaphysics, and just kind of a dive. It's just going to be a dive into understanding Kemetic spirituality, right? So, and really, this evolved and came out of just listening to people talk about Egyptian or Kemetic spirituality and wanting to get and gain my own understanding of it, right? Because there were points made that people made that made sense, and it was like, okay, what is really being said here, and is it all a lie, right? Because we are led to, and really, I'm coming at this from a mystic metaphysical point, right? Like, I am not coming at it from a historical reference, although I am coming at it from a historical reference. In truth, if you've been watching me, if you follow me, if you know me, I'm more into the spiritual aspect of life in general, and I focus mostly on Kemet because, to tell you the truth, I was engaged in a lot of online debate a few years back, and I noticed most of my understanding of spirituality came from Eastern teachings. And so I began then to focus more heavily on ancient Egyptian teachings, right? I could have got initiated into West African spirituality, but I didn't. I didn't. I had started this journey in Kemet, ended up in India and China. But because of online conversations about the sanctity of Black life, I circled back to Kemet again, and just doing a deep dive. Just doing a dive. I don't even know if I could call this deep. I'm just doing a dive. Into metaphysics, so to speak, right? And this is the result. So I'm gonna go ahead and present. Hopefully you know, like yesterday, this is going to pick up from there. If it gets too long, I might end up cutting it again, but um we'll see. We'll see. All right. So this comes from uh Plutarch on Isis and Osiris, right? Right. Now Plutarch's work was for a Greek audience, right? That's why Plutarch wrote his work, right? And it discusses the some of the priestly teachings, right? Plutarch said that the Kemetic priests said that freed freed from the body's clamor, freed from emotions, freed from desire, could reason in a finer way, right? And in modern Eastern traditions, we call that discipline. We call that meditative insight, right? That's what we would call that if we were to look at it, in today's standards, the Kemetic practice of freeing the mind from the body's clamor can also be interpreted as controlling the mental chatter, controlling bodily desire for pleasure. Right now, um, this isn't Greek philosophy. This is not a Greek imposing their perception of Kemetic spiritual practice. This is a Greek reporting what Kemetic practice was, right? So it is the secluded private reasoning of the quieted mind that is the seedbed of the vision from the divine essence, right? And when Plutarch says in section 79 and 80, he said he presents the quieted mind has better able to apprehend higher truths, right? Something that later readers, something that we in today's world we call meditative insight. You know what? As a matter of fact, hold on one second. Let me go ahead and do something really fast for the moment here. Hold on. Give me one moment. Give me one moment. Let me. Yeah, give me 1 second. I'm trying to make sure I'm about to pull it out exactly. It'd have been better if I did that earlier. Right? Well, anyway, let me just go ahead and get through this because I should have done that earlier. So, you all right. Also, Iamblichus, right? Iamblichus, on the mysteries of the Egyptians, right? He says that the Egyptian priestly tradition describes a descending ray. He says the prepared soul is ignited by a ray descending from above. And he says that the mind does not generate the light, it receives it. This is the Kemetic understanding of a download, right? This is the Kemetic understanding of how you get a download from the universe back in the day, right? And we can see this coming from the Kemetic priests going to Neoplatonism, going to Hermeticism, going to Christian mystics, going to Islamic mystics, we can identify it in today's Indian spirituality. We can identify it in today's Chinese spirituality, right? So, right, the silence, sitting in silence, isolation, meditation, it creates the void, it creates the space for the ray to descend or for the mind to open up and become attuned to the universe. Then the spiritual ray will enter the mindset and it reaches the heart, and then the vision is revealed. You become attuned to reality. That's the Kemetic practice, right? So it's an inner experience, something that cannot really be described. It's not something, or it can be described. It's definitely being described right now, but it's actually something that you have to experience. It's like, watching these brothers and sisters discuss these things about African spirituality, about what people did, and they've never participated in African ritual. You know what I'm saying? Never, even though African spirituality, African ritual has been in America for the last 60 years plus, at the very least. We're not going to talk about what was in New York prior to, but I know for a fact that for the last 60 years, or at least since the 60s, there's been authentic, legitimate African priests in America initiating brothers and sisters into African spirituality. And so these people had a chance to understand what it meant to participate in our ancestral traditions. But most of these people, they want to talk about swimming without actually ever getting into the water. That's really what we're experiencing when we watch these people talk, right? They want to tell you all about swimming. They want to be the uh the experts as it relates to swimming. They want to teach you how to swim. They want to tell you how to swim. They want to tell you that you're not doing it right, but they've never done it themselves. They've never touched the water. All they are doing is reporting on what they've seen in the water, right? And so, there's a flaw in that approach. It's a good approach. If you ain't got nothing else to do, if you don't have access to, spirituality, it's a good approach, but it's not recommended. You know, really truly go get initiated, go get apply these practices and see for self what they're talking about, right? Because it's not like these people, it's not like our indigenous ancestors just sat around thinking about things. They did. They sat around thinking, but there was applied practice, right? So here's the takeaway, right? Silence quiets the mind. Attention becomes one pointed. The mind becomes transparent. And then the spiritual ray passes through, and then the vision is revealed, right? The mind it cannot reason and force the light. The mind and the body must be prepared. And the way to this understanding is through silence. The experience is grace, right? And union happens in the heart and in the mind. All right. So we talked about two priestly streams that came together, right? We have the sim priest and then the lector priest. The sim priest had visions, they had trance, they had union, there was dream incubation with the sim priest. Then there was the rise of the lector priest, where there was sacred texts, there was formulation, there was ritual speech, right? And then there became a synthesis in later times, right? Where you have text, then you have trance, and then you have vision and dream incubation all together now, right? But the sim priest trance in Kemetic spirituality, it didn't go away, right? It didn't vanish when the lector priest arrived. It went into specific moments. It went into dream incubation chambers. It went into personal devotional life of the priest scribe. And then when you get to the Greek, Greco-Egyptian times, they were merged, right? And a single priest could recite from the scrolls and then also do dream incubation, dream oracles at night. So, and then it was this synthesis, this convergence that fed the mystery tradition that we know of now in the Greco-Egyptian times, right? Was our Greco-Egyptian. I'm going to refer to Hellenistic times as Greco-Egyptian. So when we read the Greek magic papyri, what we're really reading is a synthesis of Kemetic spiritual practice. So we talked about yesterday I talked about water bowl divination, lamp divination, ring divination, ring attunement. How these were the ring was a sacred object in which deity was carried with you, right? In which deity would act as a mnemonic device and help keep you attuned, right? And we talked about anointing with the oil. That's what I talked about in yesterday's presentation, right? So this Kemetic magic survives today, right? We can see bold divination in many of the esoteric practices today. We can see lamp divination, staring at a flame. If you've ever done meditation and read meditation books at all, you know you've come across techniques that tell you to stare at the flame and hold your attention on the flame until you become immersed inside the flame, right? And we all are familiar with oil and scent in meditation. Oil, scent, meditation, incense, right? So if you take away one thing from my earlier part of the presentation, understand that the Kemetic priests value quieting the mind, purifying the body in order to receive divination, or in order to receive understanding, or in order to receive initiation, right? There according to reports from Plutarch and Iamblichus, they purified themselves through ritual and through trance. Through ritual, they purified themselves went into trance in order to receive visions. Right? This is what was reported was the Egyptian or the Kemetic priestly tradition. All right. So let's get into the stars, right? Kemetic astronomy, right? So, when people think of astrology and its beginnings, a lot of times without hesitation, with no hesitation, they'll say astrology began in Egypt, right? But a particular type of astrology was in Egypt, and then a particular type of astrology was in Babylonia. And they'll talk about the Temple of Dendera. They'll talk about the Temple of Dendera, and they'll quote that, and that'll be it, right? Not understanding that the Ptolemies kind of brought some stuff over, or really what happened, what is Kemetic astrology, right? Because it wasn't just astronomy. I mean, let's look at specifically what we can identify, right? There is a work, the Egyptian astronomical texts, deacons, planets, constellations, and zodiacs. This is by a man named Nurembauer and Parker. That's where I'm getting this information from, right? So, Kemetic astronomy was theological, right? According to Otto Nurembauer and Richard Parker, they showed that the Cometians divided up the sky into 36 deacons. So there was 36 deacons, right? 36 regions of the sky. Each was ruled by a particular and by a specific star or group of stars, right? And then each of those stars governed about 10 days of the calendar year. So every 10 days was a star was over, a star's power influenced ancient Egypt or influenced the world, right? Now, to know which deacon is rising at the moment of birth or at a ritual or at an illness, it was to understand what divine power was on the earth at that specific time, right? So for the Kemites, the sky was like a clock, right? For the Cometians, the sky was a clock with 36 positions. The sky was a clock with 36 positions. And each position had a name, each position had a god, and then it had a meaning as well. And so, right, the the hold on one second. Hold on, let me see. Sorry about that. I had to take care of something really fast. Boom. All right. These 36 stars were known as the Katiyu, the living souls of the gods, right? Um these they were the Bayu, the operative souls, the great gods, right? Now, the Kemetic deacon tradition, like, has shown us, right, that the Katiyu were addressed through prayer. There was a ritual associated with the Katiyu. Then they at a certain point they were also feared. There was a negative there was a negative side to the Katiyu, right? There was a negative side to the Katiyu in which they were feared during certain seasons. They were also invoked. They were also invoked for protection. They so there was two. They had a double aspect. They had a double aspect, right? When shining in the night sky, when they were in the night sky, their energy, the energy of that deacon was over the earth, right? They were guardians on the earth, right? But there was also 70 days in which they disappeared. And during that 70-day disappearance in the underworld, they were known to be demonic. They were known to be evil. They were known to be inimical, right? And so I'm about to go through what we know of as their names, the 36 names, their associations, their modern day associations, and their ancient associations, right? And so this is astrology and astronomy combined together, how the Kemetic mixed in astronomy and astrology together, right? The Kemetic word for the stars, remember this, it's called the Katiyu. Kat to you, right? The 36 deacon stars, right? They were the inspiration. They provided inspiration. They were the source of what would be called ecstasy, fury, doom, and fate. This is the evolution of the Katsu over time. So from the ancient Kemet all the way up into Coptic, the transition of their understanding, right? But they had an impact on consciousness. The Kemetic understanding was that the 36 deacons had an impact on consciousness, right? It's not like the stars were in the sky and didn't have an impact on the earth and yourself. They did have impact on consciousness, right? And we're going to go through that. And I'm going to go through that and show how that occurred, or what that meant for them, right? So, and then we can understand that late Egyptian and the Coptic words coming from it were connected, right? From language, we can see that the Kati was derived the words for inspiration, like I said earlier, inspiration, ecstasy, fury, doom, exorcism. These are words coming out of Coptic for curse and for madness. There was a book, Walter Crumb's Coptic Dictionary. It records this, right? And then Mark Smith's, he traces their recent development, right? And so let's move on, right? The sky divided into 36 deacons, right? So these star groups like I said, these star groups each rule roughly 10 days. And then together they completed the 360-day civil year. And then there was the 5 epigomenal days, the days in which Asar, Aset, Set, Neptet, and Heru the elder was born, right? Now the deacons, they were both astronomical because they you could see them rise on the night sky, right? So has the earth tilted, or has the earth rotated and moved throughout the night sky or throughout the year? The Kemetic could see this star group come up on the horizon and move from being visible on the planetary sphere to being to the invisible. And the stars would disappear for 70 days. So there was the beneficial appearance of the star in the Egyptian on the Kemetic night sky. And then there was the descent into the Duat for 70 days, and then the rise again. Right. And this is that was the celestial order, right? That was the divine knowledge. That's how the Kemetic kept time. And it had a practical as well as metaphysical purpose. Right. So the first deacon here is called Shitao, right? That's the first deacon, right? And it is in the first month, is the first 10 days of Aries, right? Uh so and this is Sothis or Sopdet, right? And it its position opens the decanal cycle. Um so the Greco-Roman, and a lot of this information is coming from reports, the reports that the Greco-Egyptian during the Greco-Egyptian times, right? So um this is called the tortoise. It was a creature of slow hidden cycles, right? It's symbolic of a deep period of stellar invisibility, so to speak. The next deacon, the second deacon, is called Kinnamut. The second deacon was called Kinnamut, right? So, and the exact deacon or exact star group, we really don't know. A lot of these we don't know the exact star group. Like, there's been search on trying to find exactly what star group they're talking about, but they really don't know the exact star group that they're discussing. But so remember, I'm saying this now. This is coming from the Greco-Egyptian times, right? There was a book that in the Greco-Egyptian times that related each of the deacons to each of the modern zodiac positions, right? So this is the second 10 days within the Aries zodiac, or within the Aries zodiac sign, right? So, and the name is obscurity. It belongs to the group called Kinnamut, right? And it marks the threshold between Sothis and the next bright marker, right? The Egyptians used these regions of times, during as they watched the night sky, right? Then the third deacon is called Keri Heped Kinnamut, right? And it's a Chthonic spirit associated with regulation of seasonal cycles and the hidden forces of nature, right? Once again, like I said, its position is uncertain. The position is uncertain, but it's about 20 to 30 degrees of Aries. Now, this is the first deacon. It's spirit function, right? It's he who causes the dead to be in the earth. Also, who permits heat to arise from the fire demons and the bitter water demons, right? This is Kemetic. This could have been an understanding of Kemetic astrology, Kemetic astronomy, astroastronomy, right? When this star is over the night sky, this is the energy that is on the earth. I mean, come on, this is African indigenous information. That's what they said. Although you don't have it in the documents that particular phrase, that's what they was coming at, right? So this star is said to govern the transition between death and rebirth, and then it manages the release of heat and the balance of fire and water spirits, right? This is Khepri Heped Kenamut, right? So when you're talking about Egyptian astrology, you can be more specific and talk about the deacons within Egyptian astrology, right? So Hat Jat, right? This is the front part of the stork. Once again, the constellation is debated. It's the first deacon within Taurus, right? And the stork is a constellation whose body is divided across deacons 4 and 5, right? And its anatomy is common to Egyptian sky lore. The stars are red as bodies in the night sky, right? The fifth deacon is called Pekwijat. The fifth deacon is called Pekwijat, right? Once again, you're gonna see it. Like I said, the deity is not really specified. It's 10 to 20 degrees of Taurus. It's 10 to 20 degrees of Taurus. And it represents the final part of the stork's ascent when it's fully risen above. There's not really an understanding of what it is doing, though. So you don't get clear understanding, right? I could have went deeper into the science, and I really should. what I'll do with my next presentation on this is I'll go deeper into the science. What I'll do is finish these 36 um, deacons and then move on from there. Right. The next deacon, the sixth deacon, is called Jamat Herit, and it's 15 degrees in Virgo, right? 15 degrees in Virgo, and it marks a region where there's sparse starlight, and it's read as a celestial meadow, right? The seventh deacon is called Tamat Kerit, right? It's the counterpart of the upper field, lower band of the celestial meadow, and it completes the pair. You're gonna notice um, as you go through this, like they have similar names. Deacons kind of have similar names as they're grouped together with each other, right? But then we're like from the Kemetic sources, we really don't know what a lot of them done. Like this next one is called Washti, right? And it's Osset who stands in the secret temple, right? And this is this deacon guards the hidden sanctuary. What is kept veiled is protected yet present, right? Um, the well-fed figure carries an iconography of fertility and ritual sustenance, right? This is the first deacon with an explicitly named major deity, or set in a temple in hidden form. It locates the goddess in the Aditon, the innermost cell of a sanctuary where her cult image was kept veiled. The fat and well-fed, figure carries the like I said earlier, the iconography of fertility and ritual sustenance. And this is the eighth deacon, right? So the eighth deacon was identified with Osset. You're gonna see this again in several of the slides. It's gonna say lacuna. That means that we really don't know what the name exactly was. So, but this was the ninth deacon in Gemini, and it was called Tepi Subdet, right? But it's just the last deacon in Gemini, right? Once again, now this is the first deacon in Cancer, right? We don't have a name for it, right? So I can do a better job at the reporting on this. I just kind of did this quickly. Once again, the 11th deacon, we don't have the name for that. You're gonna see a lot of this. The 12th deacon, we don't have the name. 13th, 14th, 15th, 6th. So here I'm gonna skip all the way to the 16th deacon, which we do have a name for. Heri Ib Wea. Heri Ib Wea, the one within the bark. Right? Set is paired with the moon god Aya, and then they both ride in the bark, the solo boat that goes across the night sky. Right? Set, who was the murderer of Asar, but was also the protector of Ra's vessel against Apep. Right? So this is Set in his defensive role. It says here pre-Assyrian, but this is Set in his defensive role. And what you have to understand about Kemetic spirituality was they did not see the elimination of chaos as something to be valued. It wasn't the elimination of chaos that was the goal in Kemetic spirituality. It was the control of chaos. It's a big difference. It's the control of chaos that is the goal. The control of chaos in service to the divine essence is the goal in Kemetic spirituality. Okay, so next we have Sejmu, the 16th deacon. We got 20 more to go. Good Lord. Good Lord. Sejmu was the 16th deacon, and he's one of the oldest gods in the Kemetic pantheon, right? We can see him in the pyramid texts, and then he is the god of the wine press, and he crushes the heads of the damned, right? Just like somebody would crush grapes. As a deacon, he marks the hour of executive justice, right? Sejmu. So he was, so we can imagine. So this is what they say about Virgo. If you're born during the time of Sejmu, you have a penchant for executive justice, is what the Kemites would have said. Then you have Kinemu, that's 10 to the 20 degrees in Virgo, right? And this is a protective deacon. So this is a guardian deacon, or guardian energy, right? And it's a guardian of the living pharaoh and Geb, the earth god, against rebellion. That's what it says. And this was the only deacon to name Geb, making it a marker of earth sovereignty rather than sky sovereignty. So Virgo's being attached to the earth. Then we have Semed. The 18th deacon is called Semed, right? She was Sekhmet, lady of flame, in her place who steals hearts. This is the first deacon with an unambiguously fierce major goddess assignment. Sekhmet steals hearts. The spirit pairing pairs catastrophe. The spirit pairing pairs catastrophe with the goddess authority. And disasters happen because Sekhmet permits them, not because order has failed. So disasters are part of the natural order of things, especially when Sekhmet is involved. Tepi-A Semed. So the deacons are forerunners and the announcement stars, whose rising signals that a major deacon is about to follow. Tepi-A Semed warns of Sekhmet's approach. And then we have the 20th deacon called Zeret. And Zeret is the son of the wind, and he's one of the named wind deities, or wind children of the Egyptian system, right? This deacon governs its release into the sky. In Kemetic cosmology, paired tame, fertile animals with wild atmospheric forces. Hold a second. Give me one moment. Give me a second, y'all. I gotta. All right. I'm back. All right. Next, we have Zetit Zeret, right? This is the 21st deacon. It's the north wind. It's cool wind of the Nile Valley, right? This is this is the 20 to 30 degrees in Libra, and it's the twin, right? And we're going to see it again on Deacon 29. So let's move forward. Now we have Keri Hepedzeret, right? Heru, the falcon god, is named explicitly as the governing deity. It's horse beneath the ewe, which is interesting. And so Deacon the third, the this deacon or this energy would be over this sign, right? This part of Scorpio, this Heru type of energy would be over Scorpio the first 10 days in Scorpio. Then next is Akwi, the transfigured dead, souls that have become luminous and effective spirits, right? I had a discussion about this, how you can become an effective spirit before passing away, right? In Kemetic spirituality, in the Kemetic understanding. I wonder what this does. I guess nothing. Huh. Let me see what does this do? Interesting. Oh, yo, closed captions. What? What does this do? All right. So now I can't see the screen. I guess you can't see the screen either. What does this do? This makes it bigger. Oh man, I'm up here playing with the controls. Wait, let me see. Oh, I can get in deep on the screen. Interesting. Oh, this is gonna come in handy. What? Let me see here. Hold up. Pointer options. Oh, interesting. Screen. Huh. Oh, okay. Okay, this is cool. This is cool. You know, I'm up here playing around while I'm supposed to be giving this presentation. All right, let's move on, right? Next we have Bawi, right? The soul form that can travel and manifest, right? A pair of Ba echo the famous souls of Pe and the souls of Nekin, the ancestor souls of Lower and Upper Egypt, right? So this is the 20 to 30 degree position. This is the second deacon in Scorpio. Then we have Kinti Heru, right? So whenever you see Kinti, we're talking about foremost of Heru. This is foremost of Heru, right? Kinti. And so this spirit's name reverses the usual flow. Instead of giving life to the living, it receives life from them. So, like I said, this is perhaps some sort of sacrificial type of function going on right here, right? Let me see something. All right, cool. All right, moving on, right? Okay, so this is one of the names where part of the name for this is lost, right? But it rules destructive wind, eye diseases, and the morning bark's path, right? It has a lot of medical and solar functions that were associated with it, and this is one of the most overdetermined deacons in the list. So we're talking about the 26th deacon, right? Then we have Kintiyu Heru, right? Kintiyu Heru, 20 or 30 degrees in Sagittarius. So this is a Heru form. This is a Heru version, and it's one of the Kemetic system's cult specifications, right? But this is all we got. This is what we got inside that list from Neubauer. The 28th deacon was known as Ked. The 28th spirit over the star system was known as Ked, right? And it had a military function, right? It made the Asiatic enemies of Egypt fall, right? And this deacon operates as a celestial guarantor of the pharaoh's foreign campaigns, right? So this was a military deacon. Then we have the 29th deacon known as Zati Ked, right? The Zati Ked also destroyed the Asiatics. So this is going into the first degrees of Capricorn. This is going into the first degrees of Capricorn. Then Ardiate, right? This is the jaws, Ardiate, a devouring image, right? Its functions is it talks about epidemic disease, foreign policy intimidation, and violence, right? The deacon is a weapon pointed at sickness, foreigners, and demons, right? So this is your Capricorns, so to speak. Then we have the Kau, right? This is the deacon, the Kau deacon, right? This is where the Asar and the sons of Heru are named: Hapi, Dwamutef, Amseti, and Quepsanuf. Hapi, Dwamutef, Amseti, and Quepsanuf, right? So this is the this is the first 10. I think this is associated with um I would say Aquarius, but maybe not. Then Remen Heri Sahu. We then have Remen Heri Sahu. And Sa is the Kemetic Orion. And Orion is the celestial body of Asar. Then this deacon's name is the shoulder of Sa. So this is the shoulder of Asar, the 32nd deacon. And the next deacon is Mesjer Sahu. Mesjer Sahu. And it's the listening function or organ of the celestial Asar. And then the next is Remen Keri Sahu. It's like Deacon 32. It's the lower shoulder of Asar. And then the 35th deacon is A'a Sahu. The hand of Asar, the hand of Sa closes the body anatomy. Then we have Cyrus, Sothis again, the last deacon. All right, so recap. Deacons 1, 2, and 3 belong to Aries. Shatal Kinemut and Keri Heped Kinemut, right? The custodian of the dark interval, the spirit who causes the dead to be in the earth, and the one who heralds the cosmic year. The next group, Hat Jat, Pekwi Jat, Tiamat Herit, right? These are the deacons of Taurus. The deacons of Gemini was Tiamat Kerit, Weshti, and then we don't know the 9. Remember, we got those few where we don't know their names, where I went through that, right? So, but those are the deities in Cancer, the last deity in Gemini, the deities of Cancer. We don't have the names for, and the first deities, the first few deities of Leo. But we do have Heri Ibuia within Leo, the 15th deacon. Then we get to Virgo, we got Sheshmu, Kinemu, and Semed. Then when we get to Libra, we got Tepias Semed, Zaret, Zetit Zaret. Then when we get to Scorpio, we got Keri Heped Seret Akwi Bawi. Then when we get to Sagittarius, we got Kinti Heriu. Then in the 26th, we really lost the name. Then for 27, we got Kintiyu Heriu. In Capricorn, we have Ked, Zati Ked, and Ariit. Then in Aquarius, we have Ka'u, Remen Heri Sa'u, Mesjer Sahu. Then Pisces, we got Remen Keri Sahu, A'a Sahu, and Sothis. Now, by the Ptolemaic period, by the Greco-Egyptian period, the deacons were worshipped as star gods, right? They were more than just astronomical markers. They had personalities, attributes, areas of influence over the body and the soul. They were addressed in song. They basically became gods, right? So it went from astronomy to theology. So the Katiyu, the decanal star gods within ancient Kemetic philosophy. They were the living souls of the gods. Kat. They had direct influence over earthly forces, right? The Ba'u classification meant Katiyu directly influenced energy on earth. They were not remote deities, but active agents. Whenever this star was on the planet, it was active. And it possessed a dual nature, right? The same star god, not split into twins. It doesn't have an evil twin. It's positive and negative aspects of this energy. So they were personal protectors and saviors. In their positive aspects, the Katiyu acted as personal protectors and saviors. There were late period amulets and papyri and stelae that record petitions to the Katiyu and their guardian aspect. They were addressed by name, acts to protect the wearer, invoked to ward off their, the dangers. And it was a very powerful ally, right? It was better than a generic angel because their attention could be specifically secured through ritual. Now, in their negative aspect, they were demons, right? The same star god who could protect could also afflict. And this wasn't contradictory in the Kemetic mindset. Powerful beings have two faces. Powerful energy has both positive and negative effects. And then they were especially feared at the turn of the year. The Katiyu were feared as dangerous messengers during the transition between the old and new year. The 5 economical days were precarious under their threshold. For the Katiyu, visibility was strictly equated with life and order. When the deacon dropped below the horizon for its 70-day cycle of invisibility, it died, and its benevolent protective function was lost. During this hidden phase in the underworld, the stars were no longer accessible guides. Instead, they were believed to manifest as dangerous demons. The gods weren't omnipresent in the same way Western theology often imagines. So, the star appears, the star Sopdet rises before dawn, heralding the Egyptian New Year. Order is restored. Ma'at is renewed. The world is balanced and the gods bless the land. Life and prosperity. The rivers flood, crops grow, and people thrive under divine favor and protection. The star's light keeps harmful forces away and shields the living from chaos, harmony, and renewal. There's a new cycle begins, and peace and harmony. The people celebrate and give thanks. Now, when the star does not rise, the signs of renewal are broken. Cosmic order falters. The balance between light and darkness is threatened. Famine, disease, and disorder spread. The land and its people fall into suffering. The Katiyu roam freely, bringing fear, madness, and destruction. So they affect the mind. All right. Now this the 70-day parallel is indeed the cornerstone of Egyptian cosmology. In the Book of Nut, right, which is a demotic text, it explicitly equates the 70-day invisibility of the deacon stars in the Duat with the human embalming period. So it takes 70 days to embalm. And during this hidden phase, a star was considered dead and resting in the house of Geb. So, just as the human remains were purged of physical corruption using natron, the stars were believed to shed their impurity into the earth over these 70 days. While invisible in this, so it's interesting, natron is like salt. While the invisible in this underworld, they manifested as dangerous demons. Upon their rising, they emerged from the celestial water, purified of their evils, and experiencing a literal physical rebirth. Right? So, Mark Smith argues that the Katiyu's influence was so weighty that the term migrated from naming external objects to naming internal psychological experiences. Right? So the Katiyu were star demons, powerful unseen forces believed to cause harm to humans, right? In the mental state, right? The root word Kat in demotic is no longer astronomical. It now refers to states of mind, right? The star entered into the psyche linguistically. It was the linguistic basis for inspiration, right? They were personal protectors and had their cult, or even had their worship center of worship in Thebes. They were responsible for trances, madness, and divine frenzy. And then they began to be associated with inspiration, ecstasy, doom, fate, exorcism, furies, and curses. So, here's the evolution of the Katiyu over time. The Katiyu could have influence over inspiration, ecstasy, and fury, which then inspiration led to doom and fate, ecstasy led to exorcism, fury led to curse and madness. There's a lot of negative associations with the Katiyu. It's a lot of negative associations with the Katiyu. So the same root for fury and math and wrath. The same root for fury and wrath. It was the same root for fury and math and wrath. Understand that. Doom, fate, cosmic verdict, these were all associated with the Katiyu. Exorcism and curses were associated with Katiyu. One root, two powers. Coptic inherited the root, and it became the root where it was used to translate Greek concepts of like being inspired, frenzy, raving, or acting as a madman. Now, the interesting thing is during this time period, during the Christian time period, the Aku spirits were transformed from the venerated dead to demons. The Katiyu began to be understood as internal states. All right. Boom, boom, boom. I think, all right. The sources confirm that the Hermetic text originated within the Egyptian priestly milieu, blending ancient temple knowledge with Greco-Roman philosophy, right? The Egyptian concept of Heka was an operative technique. I mean, Heka is like mantra. Heka is mantra, right? And then the priests observe the stars to measure time and determine specific influences, illnesses, lucky or unlucky days. All right, I think we can end this right here. And let's see. I've been on for a little while tonight, and hope you enjoyed the presentation. And I'll pick it back up a little bit later. Peace.